NHL is in full off-season mode, and with that comes a lot of wheeling and dealing, and a lot of focus was on the Buffalo Sabres, who had a couple of restricted free agents that it felt like would be difficult to keep around. They were right on one, as the Sabres have made a move. JJ Peterka is on his way. It's a Mammoth trade, so to speak, as he goes to the Utah Mammoth for Michael Kesslering and Josh Doan. The initial reaction of this trade is, that's it? And I think that is a fair one. Even if you want to be prospect guy or whatever who knows more about Michael Kesslering than the general hockey watching audience, I do think it is fair to suggest that Kesslering is a good fit for this Buffalo team, while also it being an underwhelming return for the guy who tied for first on your team in scoring at like 23 years old and could be a foundational piece. Like adding, if you just look at what Buffalo brought in, it fits a need in a very clear way. And so that is great. But to suggest that this is a win for the Sabres because they are trading a guy who could be like a core piece of a pretty good hockey team away for just a box check, that kind of stings. And when you factor in the rest of the Buffalo Sabres history with this sort of a thing, I think it really stings from a Sabres standpoint. So that's why I opened the show today saying that this trade was equal parts heartbreaking as it was helpful for the Sabres. So let's look at it from the Buffalo standpoint here first. Moving on from Peterka has to really suck because it is another young player that is on his way out for not wanting to stick around there and not being maximized by what is happening with the Buffalo Sabres. And that is a gigantic failure of this organization. They have been able to identify and bring in actually quite a few very talented human beings. But whether it is insufficient coaching, insufficient development, poor communication, or whatever, they have dropped the ball with almost all of them now. And to have a roster with the high-level talent that they have in Dahlin, in Powers on the blue line, in Tage Thompson scoring all of the goals up front with JJ Peterka as well, I don't know how you can look at all of that and then see where this franchise is and think, oh, it's just been a little unlucky or something like that. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that this has been a wild bit of mismanagement for Buffalo, and that continues here. Now, do they pivot okay out of it? I suppose. But it is a bigger overall look at a player who should be, for a team that is looking to take a step, that should be looking to take a step this year, to be moving on from that kid has to be just a backbreaking experience for this franchise and puts them in a very difficult spot, I think, moving forward. And for Kevyn Adams, I don't know. Like, I don't know what better you could do out of this situation, but you definitely could do a lot better than what is happening there right now. Like, I don't think he's making the best of a bad situation. I think it is a bad situation, and he's trying. That basically seems like it from the Buffalo side. In terms of what they are bringing in, like I said, it fits a need with Michael Kesslering coming in. It is a young, pretty good right shot defenseman who is still on a relatively affordable contract. And so, like, obviously out here in Calgary, there was talk of, Rasmus Andersson, because they need really badly a right shot defenseman. Now, Rasmus is not coming in at a high ticket here right now at 4.5, I believe it is. But that is going to go up significantly going into next year. And so maybe there was not a want on the Buffalo side to lock into that sort of a thing. So you bring in someone who kind of fits the age range a little bit, who can play effectively over on the right side. And it checks that box there, I think, very, very effectively. So it does fit a need. And there is going to be a little bit of frustration today, I think, for a few fan bases, because Peterka is a very interesting player and would help a lot of teams out. And this return, it feels like most teams' fan bases are going to say, well, we could have done that. But I do think the combination of Kesslering's age, experience, and effectiveness, and the dollar figure that comes with it, did make him kind of a unique target for the Buffalo Sabres there. So again, I don't think they got enough in a move for a Peterka. I do think that this helps their hockey team in a way that will be probably tangible for them next season. The other part of it too is Peterka is an RFA. And so if he just wasn't going to sign an extension in Calgary, then he wasn't going to sign an extension in Calgary. You know, then you've traded Rasmus Andersson for nothing. And well, shit. So this, I can see where most fan bases are going to be like, okay, what? But it does feel like at least Buffalo had a sense of a plan coming into this to try to make this move and have at least filled a need. But they have left behind another one in a very talented young forward to go along with the uber talented young forward you have up front in Tage Thompson. So it checks a box, but I feel like if you're trading a player of that caliber, you might want to check a few boxes along the way. Just a thought. On the Mammoth side of this, I mean, it's a win. There's no other way of looking at this. I think from their perspective here, that this is not a gigantic win for this hockey club, as we've been talking about it, they are looking to take another step here this season, and to bring him in, add him to an exciting young forward group, and it looks like it is $7.7 million that he is locked up in until 2030 at 23 years old. That's a really, really strong add now to this team. 27 goals, 41 points for him last season. And now to add him to an exciting forward group already with Keller and Gunther and like Kraus and all of those guys that you have on this team, it feels like a really good spot for the Mammoth to be working from. It does take away on the blue line, and okay, but they already had Durzi and Marino on the right side, and I don't think that this kid is cracking that necessarily. Now, we've talked about it again in the whole Rasmus Andersson thing, but we have talked about the Mammoth as a spot there, and I still think that they are that, because Andersson is better than those guys. But Kesslering right now wasn't going to get past that, and if you can turn that into, you know, a high-level goal scorer who almost had 30 last year, boy, that seems to help a lot of things out, doesn't it? So I think this was great. The other big part of it is you add, again, potential 30-goal scorer, you trade away from a position of strength, and you hold on to what is probably the best trade asset you have in the organization right now in that high draft pick. So this is just check, check, check for the Mammoth, that if they still want to go big game hunting, they still have the cap space to do it, and they still have this excellent trade chip at 4 overall to be able to go out and try to significantly add to your hockey club. So just a great move by the Mammoth all over the place, in what was a bit of a surprise there last night. So again, boxes were checked. Was value met? I don't think it was. But there was obviously a plan for the Sabres, and they went after it. There are going to be a lot of plans over the next little bit as draft day is coming up in the National Hockey League. Of course, we're going to have all sorts of coverage for you here on Couch Potato Diary, both on the YouTube side. The streaming side is going to be winding down a little bit, but on the YouTube side and on podcast, wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple, or anywhere like that.